Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lydia and one of the home ventilation nurse from in Singapore. Thank you for taking the afternoon off to attend this talk. So this is my team members with a group of therapists, operations, doctors, nurses, and therapists in this photo. So my objective for today is to share, our Singapore experience on how to prepare an individual needing ventilators, whether it's invasive, which is through the trachea, or non-invasive through the mask, from hospital to home. And we are going to talk about what are the preparation steps. At the end of my presentation, we have a guest speaker, Mr. Visunawan, to talk about his experience as well. I'll introduce to you guys about him later. So for a start, we usually get questions from relatives or family, like how to take care of my loved ones at home. Am I going to do it alone? How many caregivers do we need? How often my loved ones going to be reviewed by the medical team? Who should we contact if they encounter any issues? And how much? Financial is always their worry. So how much is their money expenses? So family usually felt lost, clueless, and worried before we talk to them. So for a start, we usually meet up with the patient and the family to talk about discharge planning. This meeting allows us to align goals with the family and address any concerns that they might have. So family also take this chance to know the team doctors and the nurses who will be visiting their loved one at home as well, which is us. So what happened after the family conference? Usually we ask them to identify a caregiver. Identify a caregiver can be quite difficult, like who are we going to hire someone to look after, or are we going to select some caregiver among the family members to look after their loved ones? So we need in Singapore, in Singapore context, most family members are working, so unable to care for the loved one without additional help. So family will usually engage a paid caregiver, either someone who has prior experience or someone new from our neighboring countries. We do strongly encourage one family member to be part of the whole caregiver, the caregiver team. Has paid caregivers can be ill, or they might need time off, or especially now COVID, right? They might, you never know when they will need stay home notice or quarantine orders, or they might even quit their job because they have some emergencies at home. So we can't be possibly hire someone from our somewhere else, like nursing agencies, to take care of our loved ones, because in nursing, right, as a private nurse in nursing education in Singapore, we are not really trained in ventilators in deep details or take care of the tracheostomy. So basically what we learn are those like basic learning, like other care topics, but not in great details about ventilator or pertaining specialized for MND patients. So this would require someone who know the person in depth, know their daily routines, to do the cough assist or suctioning, rather than someone who just engage from someone else. So some families are able to employ two paid caregivers to rotate shifts. The role of a caregiver. So being the role of a caregiver, the person has to be a doctor, a nurse, a therapist, caregiver, and a family member at home. It may seem overwhelming, but somehow it's doable because it's from our experience with 300 plus caregivers. Somehow they are able to manage, cope, and support their loved ones at home. In Singapore, caregivers have to undergo caregiver training in the hospital. The caregiver training usually provided by different therapies, such as the physiotherapist will teach the caregivers how to manage the secretion, such as cough assist, suctioning, and the occupational therapists will probably teach them how to transfer their loved ones safely and efficiently. The respiratory therapists will be covering the ventilator-related training. The nurses in the ward will then touch on the general basic care like cleaning, hygiene, and how to take care of the tracheostomy tube. But do expect some of the training that you might undergo might be different from how you do things at home. The trainings in the ward usually are done in a way that they fit the ward routines and of the nurses and the therapy schedule. And so it's important to know the rationale and adjust all these care tasks at home accordingly. So for example, the first reading of the day can be scheduled at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning in the hospital, but you have to, there's this medication that you can serve an hour before food. So does it mean that you have to wake up 6 o'clock every morning and, start your day very early, then you have to end your day very late as a caregiver? So usually for this, we will tell them what is the rationale and we tell them we delay the feed by an hour. So you wake up at 7, you feed first feeding to feed the medicine. First feeding will be at 8, and the last feeding, of course, will be an hour later in the day. So what to learn? The caregiver task to learn depending on the needs of your loved ones actually. So how long does it take for the caregiver training? The quickest caregiver training that I've ever seen, right, is actually 3 weeks. If the caregiver has prior experience with those ventilators or even tracheostomy. But then for a new caregiver who has no prior experience, usually takes around 2 to 3 months. Some might even 4 months from the time of the family conference, the whole preparation process. It depends on how soon the family are able to get a caregiver also, or select a caregiver. So let me give you an example. So for example, someone who has a tracheostomy tube, which is also known as a breathing tube, and is depending on the ventilator, which is also a breathing machine. And from the picture on the right, these are some of the list of the care tasks that the caregiver has to perform. The caregiver has to learn things like how to do a basic care in a bed and how to change the bed sheet with the loved one on the bed, how to do the tube feeding, how to monitor the blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, or how to set up a TOBI, which is the eye gaze computer interface for them to communicate, how to manage the ventilator alarm, and how to take care of the breathing tube, the tracheostomy, and the list goes on. So these are some of the care tasks or the list of trainings that we usually ask our ward nurses or the therapists to teach our caregivers. So an important aspect is the emergencies of the tracheostomy dislodgement, blockage, and ventilator. So we have to always plan for emergencies like what's the management, because our caregivers are usually not medical trained, so they need more information and more training materials or revision in this aspect. So for someone who has no tracheostomy and is only on this non-invasive ventilation, which is a mask over the face, it seems that there's lesser training to undergo. However, for an individual with motor neuron disease, respiratory needs can be harder to support towards the later stage due to the progressive respiratory muscle weakness. So family may find it hard to manage that breathlessness and things like that, and require more support from the medical team. So the training for someone who doesn't have a trachea is still pretty similar to someone who has a tracheostomy tube. So these are the topics that was also for someone who has no trachea, but the only thing that's missing is how to care for a tracheostomy tube. From the list above, right, you can see that the whole training can be quite exhaustive and the learning curve can be very steep. So our caregivers usually range from the young adults to elderly with different educational background. So both caregivers, we feel that both caregivers and healthcare workers, right, have to work together to ensure that the learning process is smooth. We can't be always like one-sided, like the healthcare worker has to tell them, just explain things to them, but then they might not be able to catch what the healthcare worker might be talking about. So do voice out what's your concerns and what's your question during the training. So caregivers also will have to take notes and do some pre-reading before the training starts. So on the right photo, this is a handwritten note done up by one of our caregivers who has taken notes during her caregiver training, which makes her understand better. You see that she draws, she writes, she highlights, she writes in red, all those important points. On the left photo, our healthcare worker has to improvise teaching materials to illustrate the effects of the ambu bagging, the resuscitator bag, how does it work. So we also reinforce certain points like caregiving, right, can be a routine over time. So it's hard to remember details when information are needed by the medical team. Because the thing is, I don't even remember sometimes how many times I pass motion within a week. So during the caregiver training, we encourage caregivers to make records of their loved ones' vital signs, which is the blood pressure, temperature, and heart rate. You see the food that they take, or how much water do they drink, or how much urine they pass out per day, how much motion, what's the quantity, what's the color, and things like that. So this information actually is very useful for the medical team to compare the individual baseline condition and when the condition changes. So there's so many information, right? It's hard to remember. So over the years, we developed educational materials and videos for our caregivers, which are available in our mobile app. So and our YouTube channel for them to access and pre-read or refresh our memory. So most information in the trachea care booklets are also given to the family, so the caregivers who have no access to the mobile app. So after all the trainings and caregiver that the caregiver underwent, usually me or my colleagues will usually test them. So test sounds like a very serious thing, but actually all we wanted to do is to ensure that they understand the concept, manage the possible drop out or they can't breathe at home. What are the response to be like? So or what to do when the ventilator fails. So the learning the steps in daily routine, right? Daily routine, like you bathe, you do functioning and everything is very routine. It's easy because you do it day in, day out. But for someone, when there's a situation that happens, it requires the caregiver to use their critical thinking or what the knowledge that they have learned in the past to apply in that situation to manage the person before they can call for help or while waiting for ambulance to arrive. So as a human, we tend to panic during emergencies or when the things unexpectedly happen. So doctor and nurses also panic when during the code blue and things like that. Just that we don't show any, we keep quiet and our brave front. But we do have drills and tests even in the hospital to refresh our memory also and keep our competency in check. As our caregivers tend to forget, the emergency response, right, that we taught them, they will tend to take notes. So these are some of the notes that our caregivers have taken and pasted on the wall near their loved ones so that they can refer to during the crisis. So as mentioned previously, we rely quite heavily on our paid caregivers, which might not be very familiar with the Singapore culture. They might even speak in a different language as well. So they might not remember the important contact numbers or even the home address at the initial period when they are here. So we ask family members to put up important information on the sheet that to be pasted on our wall for their easy reference. So next I'm going to talk about home environment preparation that we need to pay attention to. So we need to make sure that the home is ready for our loved ones to move in. So we do not want to renovate or change anything after they are discharged. So the whole environment preparation should be done in concurrent with other preparation while they are in the hospital. So things to take note, like is there sufficient place for the hospital bed, space for equipment such as ventilator, suction machine, etc. So whether is there sufficient power socket, because as later I'll talk about the equipment, but there are quite a few equipments that the person might have. So we also worry about overloading the equipment on one power socket, which can cause a fire. So we usually advise that the ventilator, being a life support machine, should not be sharing the power socket with other equipment. So for other aspects, like is there any curbs or stairs or ramps, that we have to build in or renovate the stairs a bit so that our loved ones can enter the house easily. And especially for those who are staying on staying in the house with 2 levels or 3 levels, because usually we tend to stay on the second story or the third story and above, right? And we usually advise our family members to allow their loved ones who are rather bedbound to sleep on the ground level of the house, because it's easier for them to move out of home if needed, and such as going for hospital appointments or returning back to the hospital for emergency situations. It will be very hard for the paramedics or ambulance staff to carry your loved ones down the stairs, and there might be risk of fall as well. So for occupation, usually in our hospital, we ask occupational therapists to review the home environment and provide advice in this area. So there's another advice that we will need to emphasize also, to declutter the house. So cluttered area can be a high risk for fire hazard, accumulation of dust, and increase your loved one's risk of pneumonia and other skin conditions. So this is one example of one of our patients' place that we have been reminding them to declutter. So some example of home setup that we think is doable and practical. You don't need very fanciful kind of trolley that you've seen in the hospital. So usually trolley, shelf, and cupboard to store equipment and other items can be useful. So you may find caregiving also slightly easier without having to search for items that if the things are organized. So you see, so they will put it on a table. Some people find trolley, even find cupboard, or even store shelf on it. So what to prepare for your loved ones in terms of equipment? The equipment to get for your loved ones can be quite exhaustive, quite a lot. But it depends on the needs of the person. So if you are someone who has a tracheostomy, require a cough assist, the startup cost can range from can be up to 15,000 Singapore dollars, depending on the type of machines that the loved one require. So the I think the simplest usually can start from 5,000, then all the way to 15,000 dollars Singapore dollars. The most costly equipment is the ventilator. So for someone who's depending on the ventilator for more than 16 hours, you need a life support machine that can run for 24 hours without the risk of breaking down. That will cost about 11 to 13,000 dollars Singapore dollars. Whereas an individual with a night ventilator, you use a nighttime, you don't need such a robust machine. That will probably cost 4 to 5 Singapore, 4 to 5,000 Singapore dollars also. But you may be worried about cost, but I think in this aspect, don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes there are people around that are willing to donate certain equipment to you, or you might want to buy over a cheaper equipment, a second-hand equipment, and things like that. Or there's some government subsidies which you might not know, and can ask the medical team for advice. So these are some of the respiratory equipment we usually advise our family to purchase. Some of the equipment might not need at the point of time, such as this oxygen concentrator, which on the left top corner. However, it's very useful for your family, for your loved ones to. It's very useful because in times where your loved ones are well, right, they require immediate this kind of supplemental oxygen to improve his saturation, right? So imagine you have to wait for the vendor to come. You call the vendor tell you that only can deliver probably tomorrow morning, or maybe on Monday, or which is a working day. You have to send your loved ones back to the hospital. So usually if you have an oxygen, some equipment standby at home, it'll be easier for you to connect and use it. Then why not, right? So anticipating important essential equipment and consumables are very important. So next are the wheelchair, commode, hoist, and things like that. So usually this one I will advise access at a later date. But of course, hospital bed is a must. But because actually it depends on the frequency that your loved ones wants to be seated out, if there is any manpower to get him or her into the shower. So because moving a loved one out of bed is not that easy as it used to be. Moving someone with a tracheostomy on a ventilator can also be tougher and more complicated than someone who are just weak on limbs but doesn't have anything else, because you have to pay special attention to the ventilator and the tracheostomy tube, because there's a risk of dislodgement for every move. So and it becomes that showering, right, towards the end stage, late stage, right, showering or moving out of bed, right, may be a bit tougher. So it might not be a daily event, no more like showering every day. It's more of like once a week or once every fortnight kind of event. Because to reduce some caregiver stress also. So many of times, right, these equipments, right, become a white elephant at home, because after a while, people realize that they are not like moving out of bed that much. So the wheelchair just sit at one corner of the house, or the commode or the hoist. So just may not have to get it during the hospital stay, but you can probably reassess and see how it goes. But of course, it's important to get a therapist, occupational therapist, to look at the right equipment for you and to teach you guys how to transfer out. For the monthly recurring cost, right, it may cost about $2,000 or for each month. With someone who has tracheostomy or fully dependent, it may cost even higher. It depends on like how frequent you want to change certain consumables and what kind of milk feed that someone is on. Of course, cost will be higher if you have two big caregivers. So if someone who has taken orally, that means eat food, but rather than tube feeding, the cost can be slightly cheaper also. Or someone who is not using a urinal, then instead of using a diaper, the cost can be also a bit lower. So what's the medical support after the discharge? So for our end, right, we will usually visit our patients within 48 to 72 hours after their discharge. The purpose is to make sure that they are settled safely at home and to address any concerns that might have this discharge. The 1-2 days in between is to allow them to have a feel, to let them manage, and so that they can ask us questions. We do provide telephonic support and home visits, and our usual visits will be ranging from 2 to 6 months, depending on the needs. We change trachea at home, we change the breathing tube, gastrostomy tube at home as well. So the caregivers are able to contact us if there is any change in their loved one's condition, to ask for advice. So because our team also operates during office hours, the caregiver will require to equip with the adequate knowledge and skills to manage some issues at home. So the caregiver training provided in the hospital, the caregiver assessment that we do by our team nurses are very necessary and essential to ensure that the caregivers are confident and skillful to bring their loved ones home. So caregivers are advised to bring their loved ones back into hospital if it's a very emergency and will require medical attention. We also collaborate with home hospice team to ensure that those of our patients who choose not for further aggressive treatment to stay home comfortably. So you think that training ends during the hospital? No, so caregiver training is always ongoing because you will encounter new situations every day, then you might learn from it. You might need to figure the solution on your own, or you try Googling or asking your friends in the support group. Or sometimes you might need some advice from the medical team as well. So let me share with you some of our caregivers. So as mentioned, in Singapore context, our patients are usually cared for by informal caregivers or from neighboring countries and with the help of one family member. So through our experience, right, actually it takes love and commitment to be a caregiver. It's not about how clever you are to learn the caregiver task. So as long as the caregivers are ready to learn and take up the role, they are able to up to a caregiver role in no time. So let me tell you a touching story. You see the photo on your left, right? There's these two middle-aged lady with one elderly lady on the bed. So actually both of the caregivers are both daughters. Both of them are not really highly educated or rather they rarely read or write. So their mother is on their tracheostomy tube with 24 hours ventilator. Then she also requires a cough assist and suctioning to remove the phlegm. To them, it's difficult to learn the concept of the ventilator, what happened during the emergencies, or how to even how to use the ambu bag or the manual resuscitator. So it takes them probably 4 months or more to understand the whole concept. Even the nurses and the therapists find it hard to teach them. But one thing is they never give up. They continue to learn from the nurses and therapists, and they manage to go home after that. So they have been home probably for a year plus to 2 now. They still diligently perform all the care tasks that they were taught and attended to their mother. So today, the mother has already managed to win off the tracheostomy tube. Of course, she's not a motor neuron patient, but but somehow she's from other diseases, lung diseases, that she managed to remove the tracheostomy tube and rely on the ventilator on face mask overnight. So caregiver stress is something that we have to keep in mind. The demands of the caregiver can be overwhelming. The emotional stress, the emotional impact can snowball over time also. So we worry about caregivers having prolonged period of stress can also affect their health, relationship, and emotional well-being. So we always advise them to take care of themselves, and taking care is not a luxury but a necessity. It's also important to practice acceptance of the situation that you cannot change and look at the silver lining now. So being a caregiver can also bring the bond between you and your loved ones, bring the closer bond between you and your loved ones, and you might get a self-satisfaction and confidence from the caregiving. So it's always okay to involve other family members in caregiving, such as your children. Some people worry about burdening the children or other family members, but allow them to take care, right? It allows them to fulfill their filial piety and grow from the experience as well. And also remember not to let the caregiving take over the life. And it takes some time every day or 2 days per week to do the things that you love if possible. And you can focus on things that you can control, like I mentioned, the feeding schedule. You can change according to your lifestyle also. But as long as you pay certain attention to the rationale behind the feeding, and so joining support group will help also, because you might find solution and answers from others and or even make new friends. So I have come to the end of my presentation. I think some of you are falling asleep already. And let me introduce to one of our ALS warrior, Mr. Riz Sunawan. So you might recognize him. He's a former radio and TV presenter. He was diagnosed with ALS in 2018. However, Riz was tracheostomy late last year. He's here with us today in the Zoom chat room. maybe excited and ready to share his experience from hospital to home. So Reese, can I hand over to you? So both of us will answer your questions you might have after this session.
Hello everyone. I hope you can hear me well. I've tried my best to speak clearly. So basically, our expert Miss Lydia has covered most of the things already. Basically, I had my tracheostomy late September last year at SGH, Singapore General Hospital. As mentioned by Lydia, the caregiving component, the training component is very important. So I'm lucky enough to have a caregiver who's willing to learn. And my father as well stepped in to be the second caregiver. So we took perhaps about 4 to 6 weeks of training by the medical team. Am I correct, Lydia? About 4 to 6 weeks of training in hospital prior to discharge. So the medical team really trained my caregiver and father very well from A to Z and every aspect, the therapies, the OTs. So of course they have to go through the assessment prior to be allowed to be discharged at the end of November. So I had a surgery in ICU in September. I'm able to be discharged at the end of November last year. So the training really helps a lot in terms of preparing the caregivers and also myself to be able to adapt to a new lifestyle at home. So yeah, so it took about 4 to 6 weeks of training in the hospital prior to me being discharged. So basically that is what happens before moving, before going home. And as mentioned earlier by Lydia, there are a lot of things to be prepared as well, especially your room, your space, the environment to accommodate all the equipment and the extra consumable items that you need to prepare. So I have a special cupboard for all the barang-barang, all the medical items, a few trolleys to accommodate the ventilator and the courtesy machine. So basically, as what Lydia mentioned, physically you have to be really prepared in terms of the area and environment. Lydia, anything you want to touch on?
You want to share your presentation? There are some, maybe you can explain to them some of the photos that you sent me.
Okay, can yeah.
Can all?
Okay.
Let me play.
I'm gonna take a break for a while for functioning. So basically, this is the whole support system is very holistic, from the speech therapy to the occupational therapies to the doctors and nurses. So as you can see, we use the 2B machine to interact and to continue to be active. And I'm very glad that we are able to form the very first the Association of Singapore. So I'm very happy to be able to be a part of it. As you can see the picture, that's by ST Lydia to assist me with the different software and how to continue to be able to communicate via the to be machine. Another picture. Oh yeah. So as I mentioned before, we have just set up the the association in Singapore, and I was this is just one of the articles that they interviewed on my part helping to set up the association. So association as well, you need to be to keep your mind positive and to keep yourself busy. So in order to have a purpose in life. So I'm very fortunate that I'm able to set up with my fellow patient, caregivers, volunteers, and doctors therapy as well for the the association in Singapore.
Reese, do you want to do some suctioning or cough assist? We are okay. We are okay that if we need to clear some of the phlegm in between.
Okay,
And now you
yeah.
clear your phlegm first.
So Lydia, you continue for a while.
Okay, sure. So actually it's I know that everyone can see that we can actually talk with a ventilator using a lip speech lah. But not every motor neuron disease patients are able to do that. It depends on on their verbal condition. If they are able to, still having that speech on. Yeah. So Mr. Reese still able to do that, but then in between he probably need to clear some phlegm, do cough assist in between his meetings. He's still very engaged in his work as well.
Yes, thank you.
Until he's very stressed at times also. Okay, yeah. Please, I continue sharing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, continue the other slide perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one shows how important caregivers are in our life. So my main caregiver is my helper. My second caregiver is my father. So as mentioned in the article, my father braved himself and stepped up to manage myself to assist the main caregiver in taking care of me. How the routine is like, my main caregiver will take care of me during the day. At night, my father will take over. But I rarely disturb my father at night now because I'll be sleepy by the way. So mostly the courtesy, the medication, etc. are all done during the day. So at night, my father alhamdulillah has to wake up. So that's how the burden of caregiving is shared among my caregiver and my father. And my family members also step in to help us in a while.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. As Lydia mentioned, before we need to prepare a lot of equipment. So this is the hoist that's used to transfer me from the bed to the wheelchair. So what we do is we try to practice once a week, transferring me to the wheelchair to also once in a while we try to go down and just get some fresh air. Sorry, I let it be a suction for a moment.
Sure, no problem. You can suction wherever you need to.
Yeah, so this is a weekly thing of transferring me to the bed, to the wheelchair, either to sit or the living room, or to go down and walk at the park, or to go out. So as you can see, transferring me needs three manpower. So it's as Lydia mentioned, it's quite a challenging process. But I think it's a routine we do for all of us. So we are used to the action of doing this weekly every either every Monday or every weekend. I'll be transferred to the wheelchair to watch TV or to go out for a walk. For patient with trachea, I think it's one every 2 months kind of challenge that we have to fight in order to change the trachea, which is the thing that is affect to your windpipe. So every 2 months, the whole population people visit to check on me and also to change the trachea tube. As you can see from my face, it's how to say Lydia? It's a challenging.
Yeah, difficult because it's quite a discomfort. There's discomfort, can be quite painful at times also. Yeah, right. Not every time, but it's at times, right?
Yeah, but thank you to the support of the medical team and family members as well that to ease the process. So support is very important. Of course, prior to the change, we take painkillers to lessen the discomfort. But this one, as you can see, I'm really controlling the discomfort of the look of my face. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are some of the pictures that I have. And of course, if you have any question, Lydia, I will be very happy to answer. And you can also look out for me on my Instagram. I constantly share about my journey. So you can always DM me to ask questions. And I'm more than happy to share my experience. So thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, Reed.
For the opportunity. Yeah, I will still be around if you have any question. Thank you.
So we can answer some questions, but let me share with you the mobile app that I've talked about previously. Yeah, so this is the QR code if you are keen to find out more about the mobile app, some of the educational materials that is in the mobile app.